4 top 10 teams in the 2024 Maui Invitational? We better call in the Maui Squad.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up, folks? Welcome into this Maui Invitational Squad Roundtable show. It is good to be together as we get ready for Feast Week. We're leading into the Thanksgiving weekend. It's great stuff. You're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. We've got 6 of the 8 hosts of the teams participating in the 24 Maui Invitational. Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn, Mark Zanetto, Locked On UConn, Matt Sheehan of Locked On Spartans, Kevin Borba of Locked On Buffs, and brand new to the network, Nick Marovitz of Locked On Cyclones.
What a debut. Welcome.
Man.
Thank you, boys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm Isaac Shade, the host of Locked On Tar Heels, as well as Locked On College Basketball, so it works out really well. Obviously, we are shy a Dayton host, and we are shy a Memphis host, but Penny's coming by here in a little bit, so we'll get into that. Folks, what we're going to do, we're going to get into a little roundtable discussion as we do. So I need to tell you that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. Go, man. Visit FanDuel.com to get started, just like we're about to do right now. Welcome into all the everydayers of all these great shows and everybody that's hate watching because you wish you were at Maui with all of us this year. All right, boys, here we go. I said it in the cold open. We've got 4 top 10 teams, at least with this week's AP poll in this thing. Number 4, Auburn. Number 2, UConn. Number 5, Iowa State. 10, North Carolina. And then you add to that Dayton and Colorado and Memphis and Michigan State. It is an absolutely loaded field, boys. Right out of the gate, what are you looking forward to with this Maui Invitational that's getting back to the Lahaina Civic Center this year?
To have a good time. That's what we're here to do. Look, we're not one of those 4 top 10 teams that you said. We're here to go 2-1. Doesn't have to be in the championship game, but we need some big wins here. It's been slim pickings the last few years over here in East Lansing. We're used to, at least in my childhood and youth, winning a lot, and we haven't been doing that a lot in the last 5 years, namely against top-tier teams. No shortage of opportunities, and that's what Tom Izzo and myself both like there. That's right. I'm just excited for this one, man. Excited.
Matt, I got to ask you before anybody else goes, you're wearing your shades and your bucket hat. Do you have SPF 50 on with that?
No, it's 100. Do you see how pale I am? Are you out of your mind? It's got to be triple digits or I ain't putting it on my skin, man. So, yeah, we're rocking SPF 100 over here.
No doubt.
That kind of matches the vibes that you're putting out, Matt, which I'm here for. No, I'm loving the matchup between Auburn and Iowa State. I think that's the best matchup in round 1. Yeah. I'm probably a little biased in all of this, but I'm excited really for that entire half of the bracket. You know, because Auburn and Iowa State and North Carolina, they've all got to compete with each other. They're not like UConn on the other side of the bracket, where I think they've got a smooth walk to the Maui Invitational Championship. And I think Auburn and Iowa State is definitely the headliner to start things off.
Oh, no, I agree.
Nick, you got this much, like brand new, Nick. What pushback you got to Zach? Cyclones pulling this off?
Get in there, Nick.
Yeah, no, I say this much. I think that this is the championship, right? Iowa State is going to win the Maui Invitational. Auburn, of course, one of the toughest competitions in round 1. I think Iowa State will come out ready to rock, but this is a huge get ready game for the Cyclones. Obviously, everyone in Ames is tired of those Sweet 16 exits, and we got to get this. We got to get the vibes right immediately. It's got to be right now.
Well, I'll say this as the host of Locked On UConn. I, number one, have not ever resided off of a men's basketball loss. I'll say that from the get-go. Like, as I started last year, they won the Big East tournament and then ended up winning the national championship. And we're 4-0 to start this season. So I don't expect to go into the Maui Invitational residing over any losses, even though we get 3 games no matter what. So let's be real clear. UConn, when they play a tournament, they typically win it. So I think that's the biggest takeaway that I have. So sorry, Nick. I know you're new here, but I don't think that you need to worry about any titles and just worry about just being Auburn first.
I do think, UConn, I was out there for a little bit, and it's a basketball town. You guys take that very, very seriously, so I can see where you're coming from, but look out for the Cyclones.
Yeah, Nick, you don't have to be nice to UConn. You don't have to be nice to UConn.
No, don't be nice because no one else. No, they're not going to be nice to you. I can tell you that right now. Anybody in our mentions is not going to be nice to you.
No, so here are those first round matchups. Let's get them all. This is kicking off, by the way, Monday, November 25th. This runs Monday through Wednesday. We got UConn Memphis kicking this whole thing off 2:30 Eastern on ESPN2, followed by Michigan State, Colorado at 5 Eastern on ESPN2. Next is that matchup that Zach talked about. Number 5, Iowa State. Number 4, Auburn at 9 p.m. Eastern. This one moves to ESPNU. Why is that? Because the two guys named Peyton and Eli that are going to be giving us the Ravens-Chargers game on the Duke. And then right back to ESPN2 for the nightcap, number 10, North Carolina against Dayton. Do not sleep on the Flyers. That's 11:30 Eastern on the Deuce, man. A full and great day to kick off Feast Week, boys. What else in that first round are you looking at?
I'll dive in because I haven't said anything yet. First of all, Zach told me this was about Deion Sanders is what I was told. Zach asked me to talk about Colorado and their playoff chances, and here I am talking to hoops. Realistically, I want to know what Colorado's identity is. They have played 4 games, and they've had 3 different starting lineups. I think they're hitting shuffle every single game. So it's really hard to tell what this team is because every time you tune in, it's like, okay, this person's starting and this person's not. What is this team? Obviously, they lost pretty much everyone from last year's run in the tournament. But it's like, can we figure out a consistency? What is our identity? What is our goal for the year? Because they're 4-0 right now, but they've also their best wins against Northern Colorado in double overtime, maybe? I don't know.
Well, that's fitting because Sheehan, I don't know if Michigan State's quite figured out their identity yet either. Is that accurate?
That's incredibly accurate. I think it was 2 games ago where we had 31 unique lineups. That is the most in at least a 5-year span. There's a guy out there, A_Zinger in the MSU Twitter sphere that charts all these 31 unique lineups. I believe that was the Kansas game. I might be. Regardless, a lot of depth at Michigan State. That's the way we're going here.
Positive way to look at it.
Yeah, glass half full, baby. I love
it. Was the PR recommended state that we went with. It is depth, but no, truly, it's a lot of good players. I don't know if anyone's really bona fide great just yet, but Izzo has a lot of figuring out to do with his lineup. He's already shuffled around the starting lineup, and yet for the 3rd game in a row, Michigan State has saw themselves down double digits before the under-16 timeout even rolls around, and not every game has been Kansas necessarily. That's happened against Samford. Not great starts for Michigan State here. So, strong. Very strong. Hey, look,
great game. That was a great game Tuesday night. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I only had 2 heart attacks during the game, but that's okay around these parts.
Yeah,
so
you're here.
It got down to 5 points at the 6-minute mark, Sheehan, and I was like, whoa.
I was crying. It was an emotional roller coaster, which I don't need in November against Samford.
The glasses hide the tears.
A little still bloodshot from all the crying that I did, but no, you pointed out very well though. This is going to be 2 teams that are just going to try to find their identity before they get back in the pools on Monday night. So we'll see how this goes from here. Michigan State usually doesn't really have, at least in my experience, great luck in Maui. They got aced by Virginia Tech the last time we were there in 2019, and we almost lost a 20-point lead to Georgia in the second half because a little guy named Anthony Edwards decided to go nuclear there. I wonder how his career's been ever since. But no, just a lot of fun to come in Maui.
He didn't make the tournament that year. That's
I would say I'd like to point out that this is the first tournament that Dan Hurley has not been upset about the seeding, if you will. That, as Zach pointed, we do have a quote unquote cakewalk based off of the strength of schedule on our side of the bracket. We have a Memphis team where we're playing Penny Hardaway and who knows who is going to be on the team. That's Penny Hardaway's deal. I think I forget. There's a guy in our Twitter, UConn Twitter, that said the matchup between Penny and Dan Hurley is like watching a gorilla play with a little baby toy, like the coaching matchup, and just from a mentality standpoint. So whether that's true or not is another thing. And I look at it from that perspective. I'm going to give Zach some credit here. I think I am most concerned if we play Auburn in this tournament. I've said that on my show. I think they're the most talented team in the field. No disrespect to Isaac, because I think North Carolina is a talented team too. And I think the Cyclones are talented too, but I think they're more on the defensive side. But as far as kind of an offensive perspective, but I will give you this stat from UConn. Now, granted, they played all bye games, but the only teams in the nation with adjusted raw efficiency margins for both offense and defense ranked in the top 20 are Duke, UConn, Houston, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. So I expect UConn to really show a little bit more this week because they're finally playing a big game. They're not playing a team in the 300s in Ken Palm. And I think Dan Hurley, I would not want to be Dan Hurley after 19 turnovers against East Texas A&M. The practice that they probably had today or go leading into Maui is got to be brutal. So this team is going to be ready going into the tournament.
Let's put some numbers to what you guys have just said about the two sides of this bracket. At Ken Palm, on the Auburn, Iowa State, Carolina, Dayton side, Auburn's 1, Iowa State 7, Carolina 14, Dayton 43 at Ken Palm. That adds up to 65 points, an average Ken Palm rank of 16.25. On the other side, UConn 5, Memphis 37, Michigan State 45, Colorado 70. That adds up to 157, or an average Ken Palm rank of 39.25. So a much low. And look, I'm just putting stats out there, and it doesn't mean anything. You got to go play.
Still like 4 really solid teams, though.
100%.
Yeah.
This field is awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And to that
70
point,
being lowest, that's pretty crazy.
Right. Like 70 is the lowest ranked Ken Palm team in this thing. And Colorado is nothing to sneeze at. Tad Boyle is a great coach. So to that point, we had another loaded field last year, got one this year. Things might be falling off a bit next year and looking forward. We want to get to those conversations, try to figure out what the future of these MTEs are. Can things like Maui and Battle for Atlantis carry on? We'll get to that conversation and so much more coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about Prize Picks, which is the place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you got to do, I love how simple this is. They give you a player and a stat, and you just pick more or less. And if you do that for 2 or more players, you get a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. What I love is that they're putting the members first. So all your withdrawals, they're fast, they're safe, they're secure. So when your picks hit, you can get your winnings in as fast as 15 minutes. Sign up today and win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 bet. It's guaranteed. You don't even have to win to get that bonus. We don't have any lines yet for these Maui players, but how about this? Whatever Janai Broom's point total comes out at, man, I am picking the more at that. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Guys, we are hanging out with the Maui Squad, 6 of the 8 hosts of the Maui Invitational teams for 2024. Zach Blackerby, Locked on Auburn. Nick Maravets from Locked on Cyclones. Maravitz, sorry, I said it wrong. Kevin Borber, Locked on Buffs. Mark Zanetto, Locked on UConn. Matt Sheehan in the Shades from Locked on Sparty. The actual Slim Shady, myself, Isaac Shade from Locked on Tar Heel. Yes. In high school, they called me Slim. I grew up in Atlanta. Love rap. It's a real thing. Deal with that. So
can I ask a question, Isaac? Do you mind?
Yeah.
Do you care?
No,
Do you
always,
care?
Always.
Which question? A question for everybody. As far as the potential upsets in round 1, who do you think is most susceptible to be upset of these first 4 games?
You're going to make me say Michigan State? I mean. Look, UConn, they're a buzzsaw. I don't think Penny Hardaway's going to get it done. The gorilla and the baby toy analogy was, I think, very apt, if not graphic.
Wasn't me. Just don't kill the messenger.
No, I think it's got to be because Michigan State's slow starts are going to catch up to them eventually, and I don't know if the solution is just like that. And it's not just the slow starts plaguing Michigan State. We are horrendous at shooting the basketball so far this season. Lahaina High School is probably a better 3-point shooting team than Michigan State will be in this gymnasium.
I agree.
Maybe the Civic Center rims there haven't been changed out in a few years. Maybe they're buttery soft. Maybe we can take advantage of that. But it's been a horrendous start shooting the ball. Does it catch up against another group of 6 team? Look, I'm making all sorts of Locked on Spartans listeners very happy right now saying that we could be the upset, but based on what I've seen, you can't start every game down 13 and expect to rally, especially not against another group of 6 teams. So, sorry, Green and White Nation. I'm just a coward.
Yikes.
Yikes is right, Zach. Yikes. I say yikes every single time I watch my team play. No,
does anybody want to say Dayton over North Carolina?
I was going to ask Isaac because that was going to be my question. Because you're locked on college basketball. I try to dabble into as much outside of UConn as I can. But I will tell you, I don't know enough about Dayton and what they lost. They lost Kobe Brea. They lost the gentleman
De'Ron
who was like the
Holmes.
first.
De'Ron
Holmes. Thank you. Those are two phenomenal impact players. Do they have enough to hang with North Carolina in terms of North Carolina impressed the hell out of me against Kansas because they could have easily folded in that game down 20 in Fog Allen. And it reminded me of the UConn game last year where UConn went down 15 and then chipped away, and then basically had a chance to tie or take the lead at the end of it, and they just missed. So it was almost an identical style game. So to me, that's my question is, can North Carolina – is North Carolina an upset alert, if you will?
Absolutely they are. And obviously we don't have the lines as we record this yet. And I think part of the answer to Zach's question too, before I switch to that, is I think the Auburn Iowa State line is going to be so minimally small that whoever's the favorite is going to be such a small favorite anyway.
Sure. I agree.
That I think it almost just mathematically makes sense that Carolina is the most logical answer to me to this question because Dayton is a very good team. Their leading scorer right now is Enoch Cheeks, who is an absolute dude. He had 3 years at Robert Morris Romo. This is his second year now at Dayton, where he has gone from 8.1 points a game up to 17.3. He's leading this team.
Say his name again, real quick.
I was about to say, what's his name?
Yeah,
All name team. All name team.
Cheeks, baby. Cheeks, baby. Let's go.
Isaac, what?
Wow. Whoa.
Isaac's already in the Mai Tais over there. Let's go, baby. That's what I'm talking about, Isaac. Let's go. Have yourself a night.
Yes. So he's a dude for Dayton right now, but also they get Zed Key, who transferred over from Ohio State. He's a little bit of an undersized big, but he's really good. The weird thing with Dayton right now to me is Posh Alexander comes over from Butler. Hadn't really done anything yet. I've been trying to figure out if he's injured or what's going on there, but he's like their 10th leading scorer right now. Malachi Smith is still around at Dayton. He's good. So they've got some dudes. The problem is North Carolina's undersized front court can stick with Dayton's undersized front court. And then this 3-guard lineup that Hubert Davis is rolling out of Elliot Cadeau, RJ Davis, and Seth Trimble is going to cause a lot of problems for what Dayton does well. And RJ Davis hasn't even really gotten going yet. And as Mark said, they've still been able to put up some good showing. So all that said, though, I do think that Carolina is probably the most susceptible upset big in the first round.
Can we do an all name team? Because Dayton is first team all name. We had Enoch Cheeks, Zed Key, Malachi something. I mean, there's another guy in there. Posh Alexander. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's the captain of your team.
Those are 4 great names on one team. I thought we had Pat McAfee went crazy when Dan Hurley said we got a guy named Solo Ball, and he was just like, wow, that's crazy. Like that, but you have 4 of those. That's crazy.
It's affecting literally dozens of us. That's an Arrested Development quote for you, the Solo Ball condition. Zach, that's a great question about upset bids there in the first round. Speaking of all name team, at some point here, we're going to need to get to talking about all the All-Americans we've got in this field, all the freshmen studs, all the transfer studs. But I do want to get to something actually that Mark had talked with us about before the show. With the onset of NIL and everything it's doing, there is this fear that the multi-team events that we're traditionally used to seeing might have some trouble going forward. For example, this year's Maui field hasn't been affected, but Battle for Atlantis, which is probably the second most big time multi-team event right now, Creighton was in that, pulled out of it to go play at the Players Era Invitational in Las Vegas, which is the NIL multi-team event. So there is a concern that as the rev share stuff comes into college athletics, the model that's going to be, that teams are going to start finding like, hey, we need NIL opportunities as part of these Feast Week events, or we're out. Do you guys fear that this is going to be one of the last big time MTE years?
Can I dive in here? I feel like realistically, you have to look around what college sports is, which has always been about money, right? Whether people want to admit it or not, it's always about money. There's this little thing called the basketball tournament, right? Where it's every offseason where they play for $1 million. Why are these tournaments, and people can get on me for saying this is pay for play, whatever. That's what college sports is. Like, get off your high horse. That's what it is. Yep. Why are there not winner like payouts for these tournaments, right?
I love it as a Colorado guy saying this. I love it.
Hey, we built our football program off of vibes and Louis luggage. Leave me alone.
Where are your shades? That's what I want to know. Where are your prime shades?
I got bad vision enough. I don't need to have worse vision indoors. But realistically, they need to sort of get creative, right? Otherwise, this will be the death of these tournaments. Because what's the incentive to go play in Maui or the Battle for Atlantis if you can go somewhere else, get better opportunities to expose your teams? And I feel like that you kind of have to think outside the box. And I think incentives is the way to go.
You're spot on, Kevin, because we spoke to we didn't do this on the show. It was kind of behind the scenes, and then a beat reporter for the Connecticut Insider, David Borges. I'll give him some pub if you want to go read the article. David Benedict, the athletic director from UConn, gave him some quotes, gave us some quotes in terms of they're going to reevaluate like what this is going to look like in the coming years for UConn, particularly because this was the question, like, will be the last time that UConn ever plays in Maui? And he said, maybe, it could be, we're going to kind of see where the rev share model goes. We're going to think about things that make sense. Like when we played Gonzaga last year in Seattle, now they come back and play us at Madison Square Garden. So those neutrals versus home and home, but there's still a money grab there for both teams and NIL opportunities for the players. So it may be the death of MTEs, but you may be onto something where there could be more kind of the tournaments, which is the TBT is a fantastic event. Stars of Stores did not win this year, which we're upset about. But that's okay. We'll be back next year. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things where I think that's where the MTEs are going, where college sports is pay for play. There's no question about that anymore. Can we just forget about it and start to reevaluate in that fashion?
Or donate to the winners NIL fund. Sorry.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, because that goes along right with it. Like a quick Google search shows that Maui Jim Sunglasses Company is worth $1.5 billion. They do annual sales of $300 million. Surely they could fork over $5 million of those dollars for some sort of prize pool. That's where it comes down eventually. You can't saddle the Lahaina community with coming up with the prize pool. So sponsors, not to, pit our issues on other people, but yeah, hey, sponsors, step up to the table and throw a little more coin our way.
I'm right with you on that. Like, to me, it's not about Maui has to go away because of things like Players Era Festival. It's Maui has to adapt and figure out how do we have NIL opportunities.
Sure, we'll see.
Especially here, like, this is a great moment to say, I am so glad that this is able to be back in Lahaina this year. 3 of the past
100%.
5 Maui Invitationals have not been at the Lahaina Civic Center. 2 because of COVID. Last year, because of the unfortunate fire that they had to move into Honolulu. And so, literally, praise God that they're able to be back in this Lahaina community. I had the opportunity to go this summer. Things are back up and going. I got to go to the old Lahaina luau, man. They're up and running. And so this is so good for that community, man. Let's just say that, like, this is good for college basketball.
Yeah.
I was also there too. I went 1 of 3 during my honeymoon. I had to interrupt a high school girls practice because I said, hey, I'm a big fan. I want to get shots up. I went 1 for 3, which is substantially higher than what I usually shoot. So take the over in all these games. Just a little bit of gambling advice for you guys right there.
Do you hear what's going on here? We had Isaac kind of giving us like a humble brag. I was in Lahaina this past year. It's so cool. And then Matt was like, "Oh, I got in the gym and I was shooting and whatever." I mean, come on. Guys.
That was like 8 years ago when I was cool though. So it's not as flashy as it sounds.
They're just crashing high school basketball practices.
No, it's really cool. Yeah, no, just added that part.
How do you think one of the girls that were practicing, how do you think they tell that story?
It's a great question. Like to the police or to their friends?
I guess either.
I think
Hopefully
Lahaina PD was given
to their parents, maybe.
Yeah, the story Lahaina PD got was probably a little watered down. They never caught me, so it wasn't at the utmost importance. So which is good. But to their friends, they probably said, we watched the scrawniest, palest guy shoot horrendously from within 8 feet, 1 for 3. Never let people in here ever again.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, disgraceful for everyone involved. So,
which is funny because the police station is right by. The Civic Center.
Sure
guys, it is literally so tiny. It's wild to have all these.
It is crazy. They hold like actual like Division I games here. It is a spectacle.
All right, guys, we still have to get to the hardest hitting questions of the day. Which coach from the Maui Invitational is most likely to win Fight Club? Which team is most likely to get in a fight on the way over to Maui? Oh, wait, we already know that answer. Yes. Let's go.
11 hours worth of fights in the air. Let's go, baby.
The long flight.
We got to make our predictions. We got to make our predictions for who's actually going to bring this thing home and who might be that MVP. All of that's going to come up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at Z-Biotics, man. I tell you what, if you're going over to get those Mai Tais that we were just joking about, Z-Biotics would be a helpful thing for you. It's a pre-alcohol probiotic drink that's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. Invented by PhD scientists, it tackles rough mornings after drinking. I love how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut, and it's that, not dehydration, that's to blame for the rough morning you got the next morning. Free alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks down that byproduct. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, stay hydrated, and you're going to feel so much better tomorrow. Enjoy tomorrow waking up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day when you make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. To check it out, go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code lockedoncollege at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason at all, they're going to refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head on over to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege and use code lockedoncollege at checkout for 15% off. This episode is also brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, and if you win, you get $150 back in bonus bets. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. How about some odds for the Maui Invitational? UConn leads the way at +170, followed by Auburn +310, Carolina at +400, Iowa State 430, and I'll just save the other four guys the trouble. It goes way down from there. If you want to get in on that action, visit at FanDuel.com to join today. Never waste a hunch and go make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Okay, we're back with the Maui Invitational squad where we're getting ready for the 2024 Maui Invitational. Fellas, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there's a thing that I like to call the Maui bump. Here's what I mean. In the 25 Maui Invitationals we've had in the 2000s, 12 of the Maui Invitational champs went on to the Elite Eight or better that year. 4 of them have been national champs, 2 national runners-up, and on. 18 of those 25 have gone on to be a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, including 15 that were a top 2 seed and a whole mess of regular season and conference tournament champs. And 19 of those 25 Maui winners have been as high as 4th in the AP poll that year. 14 of them have been a top 2 team at some point. So fellas, who's going to win? You just heard the odds from FanDuel. Who's going to win this thing and get that Maui bump, baby?
I think UConn's winning it. I think UConn's winning
Mark.
it. Yeah,
go ahead. As long as Mark's employed at Locked On Huskies, that's all.
I mean, Locked On Huskies, take it easy.
How can you pick against UConn at this point? I mean, with what they've done over the past 2 years, like it's clear that the culture is set, and like Mark said, I mean, when they enter a tournament, they win the dang thing. So yeah, my pick is UConn over Auburn in the Maui championship. That is my pick.
This feels like a complete backtrack to obviously come out firing, saying Iowa State's going to win this thing. You know, Auburn, Iowa State is the championship in the first round. But I don't think picking anyone but Auburn here is a good play. Or excuse me, other than UConn is a good play. I wish Iowa State could win this. You know, this tournament. We need the bump. We absolutely need to get to that level. But I just don't know. UConn is too good right now. You can't pick against them.
Going to go UConn as well, but hey, you know what, Mick? I'm going to meet you just somewhere in the middle. You guys get the runner-up. I know that you guys have played the greater Des Moines area high school schedule so far this year, but that defense still looks absolutely disgusting, and like defense goes a long way. So I'm going to go with Iowa State Cyclones batting down the hatches in the first 2 games. But my God, Mark, like, can you guys just relax over there and just have just a little drop off? A tad?
No, would anyone's answer change if Hurley didn't say that their last win was comical, right? Like if this UConn team wasn't playing pissed off, would anyone change?
Exactly.
No, and I will say, because it's crazy, because I've watched all 4 of these games. I've done all 4 live reaction shows, and for the most part, the vibes are still, this team does not look the same, but it's still a dominant win, and we're going to get better. Now, the only thing I will give everyone that's in here and everyone that's going to watch this show or anyone that's going to watch the Maui Invitational is this UConn team doesn't have to be the 25-point win in the national championship or whatever it was against Purdue. I think it was 15 points to be a winner in this. They could literally eke by and still win a tournament. Like, that's possible. You can win by 5 points, 3 points, whatever. They don't have to be dominant. And I think that's kind of what Dan Hurley's setting everybody up for, is that, like, okay, we're beating these low major teams by 50 or whatever, but now that we're playing some big boys, don't be surprised if there's closer games. And that's what I will say. I think UConn is still going to end up winning this tournament, But there's plenty of people in UConn Nation that think that's not happening based off of what they saw, because it doesn't look the same as it did last March and April. I think that's a fair assessment.
And that's why I do think there's an argument for Auburn in this game.
I agree too.
Of all these teams, like, who's played the biggest game so far this year? And I think it's Auburn when they went to Houston.
That's the best win. That is the best win in the nation right now.
I think so. And one of the best college basketball games I've watched in a minute too. I mean, it was an incredible game. But everything that Auburn does runs through Janai Broome. And so the big question was, okay, with everything Houston does, like, that should match up well against Janai. And up to this point, it hasn't mattered what other teams have done. Janai Broome has been a cheat code. And I can't wait to see what that looks like this week against Iowa State, against hopefully, North Carolina, and hopefully UConn. I mean, that'd be an incredible run for Auburn as far as learning who they are as a team. But to me, like, I do think there is an argument for Auburn in this tournament because of what they did at Houston.
And I'll jump in here really quick, Isaac, before you, because I want to hear about North Carolina more. But like the thing that I would say is that people are not aware of is that if you are, then you pay attention. It's great. But Aiden Mahaney was a big transfer for UConn, has only averaged 4.8 points per game this year so far, has looked kind of lost. And Dan Hurley has been kind in the media where we need to get him going. Not that like, hey, this guy sucks or he's not where we thought he was. And I've been kind because I feel like Aiden can get there because I think he plays better against better competition. That was his knock at St. Mary's. When he plays Pepperdine or Portland, he played terrible. When he played Gonzaga, he's dropping 25 points. So maybe we see an Aiden Mahaney awakening in this. But what we weren't sure about was Terrace Reed. And that dude is balling. He's averaging 11.8 points and 9.8 rebounds for UConn. Samson Johnson, who's not playing well offensively, averages 5 blocks a game so far. And of course, you still have Alex Caravan, who's an All-American averaging 16.3 points per game. And then there's Liam McNeely, your 5-star freshman, who is going to be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. So this team doesn't have like the one alpha. They have about 4. And that's the tough part, is they're all trying to figure out who should take over at different parts. We don't have a Johnny Broome who essentially can be like, okay, Janai Broome, who's just like, hey, that's who we work through. Yeah. It's a system. So that's what they're feeling out right now.
Yeah. One interesting thing for North Carolina is they're actually going out early tonight. Today, Friday, as this thing drops, Carolina is playing at Hawaii, which is interesting. The NCAA allows an exemption where if you play at Hawaii or at Alaska, you actually get a 30-second regular season game. So North Carolina gets that, has an opportunity to kind of set their body clocks to Hawaii time early ahead of everyone else. In fact, they took off on Wednesday for the islands. And so I'm wondering, that does make it 4 games in 6 days, but it does give you an opportunity to kind of get your legs up under you a little bit and see what you got. I think the big story for Carolina, I mentioned it earlier, is just, can RJ Davis get going, right? Like, this is your reigning ACC player of the year, preseason All-American. And like, on one hand, it's like, great, Carolina's been playing well with him not doing well, because Elliot Cadeau has taken a massive step forward as one of the best point guards in the nation early this season. But they cannot win this tournament without RJ Davis being RJ Davis. And so that's a critical thing I'm looking for the Tar Heels, as well as Belmont transfer Cade Tyson coming along with his shooting. Carolina needs his shooting. He broke out a little bit in their last game, but like in that Kansas game that Mark referenced earlier, only played 63 seconds in that game, and that won't suffice for sure. Fellas, here's what
did you give your pick for who's winning?
I didn't. I actually am going to go with Auburn as well. I think Auburn is playing as one of the best teams in the country right now, and I like how I think it is Auburn and UConn, and I like how Auburn matches up with UConn. However, if I was betting on it, I would bet UConn because of the path coming out of each side of the bracket. I think UConn has a much better chance to get to the championship game than any team on the other side of the bracket. And so from a betting standpoint, UConn, from a how the teams are playing with what I've seen so far early in the season, give me Auburn for that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good pick.
I think really quick before we kind of, maybe round this whole thing off, to kind of piggyback off of Mark here, you bring the championship home the same way, whether you win by 1 or you win by 25. Doesn't matter. It's a win's a win. And that is what I think makes this tournament so great. We've talked already about how loaded it is. And I just think it really will come down to a lot of close games and a lot of really fun watching experiences when you zoom way out. Who cares who wins as an impartial fan, right? As a fan, of maybe Michigan, right? They're not there. They just want to see good basketball, and I think this tournament will bring.
And they want to see Michigan State lose. To be fair,
I was about to say.
Okay, I shouldn't have picked Michigan. Should not have picked Michigan, but that is true.
And that's just kind of the fun in this, because like this is like a loss at Maui, like it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt you at all.
But this
so,
field, no, my God,
no. So I mean, it's like you're playing. You know, I mean, this is all just gravy.
All gravy.
You know, to stay on the Thanksgiving, to stay on the Thanksgiving theme. It's all gravy.
But what's wild about that is there's going to be several really good teams that leave this event 1 and 2, and fan bases are going to be not happy about it, right? So I think that's going to be what we're going to be doing on our Thanksgiving shows, is trying to calm down fan bases that are upset about, oh crap, we went to Maui and lost 2 games. Well, it was a really good feel, right? Like, and so I think I love your point there, Nick. This is great for all 8 teams to get this experience, to get away from the mainland, because think about, man, how galvanizing events like this are for team unity. Oh yeah. Except Auburn, but like
if we get there, it'll be fine.
Right, exactly, yeah. Right. Like I think the plane might have to take a landing in the Canary Islands or somewhere over the ocean.
Do you think Bruce Pearl is flying private to Hawaii just to kind of get away from the team just during this trip? Like,
no, I mean, I think we should just fly, 15 different planes. Everybody kind of get their own. And,
now we're talking. I think Auburn's NIL can handle that.
Take a boat.
To get away from his team, it's so he can get an early start on his tan, because that's BP at his finest, if we're being honest. That said, fellas, I said it earlier, most important question of the day. Which coach in this event wins Fight Club and why?
Dude, Bruce Pearl's scrappy,
I mean, come on.
I think I'm going with Hurley.
Come on. Have you seen how small Otzelberger's shirt is?
Dude, Otzelberger is a dude. Come on.
Tad Boyle's like 6'5". Let's not forget that. He's a big dude.
Say that again?
Tad Boyle. He's like 6'5". He's big.
Can we do coaching staffs? Because I want Kamani Young as a tag team.
Dude, that's a great call.
I wanted you to say Deion Sanders to answer that question. So
Deion Sanders and the Sanders family will beat up any ball boy and any coach standing in their way.
It's Izzo.
I would take Hurley over Deion Sanders in a heartbeat, because he would just take out his foot. The foot that had the issue. Just go right for the weakness, and that shit's
that's a take.
To be fair, if we are talking Deion Sanders, he throws up 225 easily. I saw a video of it. He's throwing 225 up easily. He pressed Travis Hunter pretty easily. So Deion Sanders, I mean, we're off topic here, but I would not want to get in the ring with him.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, we're answering the question.
That's true. That's true.
No, you 7 coaches are over there. You're boxing it out, and there's little Tom Izzo, 4'11" now these days. Everyone's forgotten that he's even there. So as the other 7 people are wailing on each other to no end, getting all of their breath drained from their body, Izzo's just kind of chilling there. And then when it's finally just mano a mano against, we'll call it Hubert Davis. Why not? He's got a long reach. He's 6'5". He's huffing and puffing, and then there's Izzo, who just got word that someone didn't box out, and it's a true freshman that thinks he's hot stuff, and he comes in with that Italian-American ire that is quite often seen on Big Ten Network when we're down 13 points against Bowling Green, and he just one punch. See ya. Good night, Tom Izzo, walking away with the belt. That's how I see this thing.
And what's funny is Hubert Davis does not cuss, and so that whole fight, he would be like, farting, knockers, and like it would be hilarious.
Darn it.
Yeah.
Darn it all. Let me tell you something. Honestly, because we're playing them, but if of all the coaches, the best athlete of any coach out there is Penny Hardaway. So if Penny Hardaway gets upset about something, every single one of these other coaches, including my guy Dan Hurley, is done for. So I wouldn't want to mess with Penny. I wouldn't want to mess with Penny, especially 42-year-old Penny, who's a little thicker now. He's not a rail anymore. That dude's got some meat on him. I would imagine he'd even beat up Deion Sanders too. So,
Zanetto, we appreciate you representing the unrepresented Memphis here on the show, folks. For those of you who maybe haven't really gotten into college basketball yet this season, maybe you're just tuning in for Feast Week. Let me just give you a couple names to watch out for really quick as we get out of here. Multiple All-American candidates in this field. We already talked about Janai Broom from Auburn, Alex Caravan from UConn. We haven't mentioned Taman Lipsey's name yet somehow from Iowa State. He is a dog. RJ Davis from North Carolina. We got a bunch of good freshmen. Liam McNeely from UConn. Ian Jackson, Drake Powell from North Carolina. Tahad Pettiford we talked about earlier from Auburn. Jace Richardson, who's a little banged up right now from Michigan State. I didn't mention Ahmad Noel from UConn. We also got some great transfers, man. Joshua Jefferson, another St. Mary's transfer that's in this event, along with Aiden Mahaney and Terrace Reed, who we've mentioned. Auburn has Miles Kelly from Georgia Tech, JP Pegues from Furman. Memphis, man, I know we talked about what is their roster. PJ Haggerty is a dude, comes over from Tulsa, Tyrese Hunter from Texas, Dane Danger from Illinois. So all sorts of great names to get to know in this team. Fellas, as we get out of here from this episode of Maui Invitational Squad, any final remarks for the good people?
Not a single mention of Andre Yakumovsky. Disgusting.
I'm so sorry, Borba.
We have to thank Jared Haas for getting fired finally, and Kyle Smith leaving, and so now Colorado gets a useful transfer, and he needs to be mentioned because he's the one consistent thing they have going.
Who leads all of Maui in total points when it's all said and done? Just real quick, who's y'all's pick?
Alex Caravan.
Yeah, it's got to be the team that plays the longest, and so I got to go with Caravan.
Everybody plays 3, right?
Everyone plays 3. That's the thing, and so it's like,
yeah. But like the teams that are playing the most meaningful games, I feel like he's kind of due to lead this team to the win, and
that's
that.
Fair.
I'm going to give you one surprise name that you guys should look out for because Hurley talks about him constantly, and he yammed on someone last night, and you should see it on SportsCenter. I think it was number 4 is Jaden Ross.
Yes,
6'8" small forward. Got a steal. He threw it at him, and he like literally ended a dude's life on national television. So
literally.
Literally, it's like from Anchorman, like Jay
May he rest in peace. May he rest in peace if that's the case.
Zach, here's the real answer to your question. Memphis's PJ Haggerty is averaging 25.7 points a game right now. That's the answer to your question.
So if he scores 25 points and then he leaves, is that going to be the total?
He won't leave. He'll play 3 games. Everybody plays 3. So that's
true. That's my bad. I made the same mistake earlier where I was just like, oh, that's right. Everyone plays all 3 games.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you think tournament you lose and you're done. Question. That's not what this is.
Yeah, now that's a different story. Like I think PJ Haggerty may have the up and up, so I think you're right, Isaac. But I'll tell you, man, like you win a game and all of a sudden you feeling pretty good. If you lose that first game, especially if it's not close, maybe that dude's not dropping 25 anymore. I don't know. Maybe he may put up 25 shots, but I don't know if he's dropping 25 points.
Yeah. All right, folks, we're all going to learn a lot about our teams this week, and then we're going to have a lot of fodder heading forward from Feast Week. Going to be great stuff, folks. Get your naps in now because these games are going to be late, but it's a great way to avoid your families over the Thanksgiving holidays, so make sure you are doing all of that. Big thanks to Zach Blackerby, Locked On Auburn, Nick Maravitz from Locked On Cyclones, Matt Sheehan from Locked On Spartans, Mark Zanetto over Locked On UConn, Kevin Borba from Locked On Buffs. Folks, and I'm Isaac Shade from Locked On Tar Heels and Locked On College Basketball. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great Feast Week. Make sure you check out all these shows. Come be part of all the shows at Locked On Podcast Network where we get to hang out. It's all about your team every day. Enjoy your Feast Week. We'll be back with you another time. But until then, peace.